Hello, everybody. How are you doing? So, Sunday, September 8th, we have the US Open Men's Final for tennis. And it's going to be a really good one between Jannik Sinner and Taylor Fritz. Now, when we take a look at the odds for the betting in this match, Jannik Sinner, as of yesterday, was a favorite 1.29 odd favorite player. Now, that means anyone who puts in $100, for example, will get 29 off of that. So that basically means he's a really heavy favorite. I don't remember seeing a heavy favorite like this in the past couple of years in a final for tennis. That usually happens during the opening rounds because you have a Djokovic against number 80 or a number 70 or 60, worldwide. So that's normal to see during a first round or a second and third round. But in the final, generally the odds are much closer than this, and it's really interesting to analyze how this got to be and how this is how what's the reasoning behind these lines and what's the reasoning behind making one or the other a favorite. Now, obviously, Jannik Sinner, as a number one ranked ATP player, uh, has some advantage to his regard with this. There's been a cloud around his persona during the past couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, because of the report about the doping scandal and the alleged doping scandal that came out. I think most of the cloud has been around the fact that it was hushed, that it was not out on the media, out on the public, and that this was handled differently to what other players would have probably seen it handled like. And that's, I think, the main issue between his detractors, the people that have been speaking against Yannick Sinner during the past couple of weeks, have been people that have been saying that it should have not been kept in the dark, that it should have been public, and that he should have been suspended in play during the course of the investigation, and probably that's fair to say. But anyways, this happened, I think, a little bit a while ago, and I believe it's a little bit redundant to be speaking about it at the moment, and let's just focus on the final, and that already got off my chest. So, Sinner, number one ranked ATP player, against Fritz, number 12 ranked ATP player. Now, this is basically a top player playing against somebody outside the top 10. That's generally a reason to have such a difference in the odds for them. But let's take a look at their matchups. Now, they have a 1-against-1 head-to-head record, so 1 win and 1 loss per player, which means 1 win per player. They have only met in California at Indian Wells, and so Fritz took the first matchup in 2021. They were playing at Indian Wells, like I said. The round of, I would say it was the round of 32, probably. Demi 8 final. So yeah, I think it's the round of 32. And Sinner lost 2-0 in sets. If I'm not mistaken, it was 6-4, 6-4. So close matchup. If it was not 6-4, 6-4, it was around 6-4, 6-3, something like that. I mean, it was a really, really close matchup. And then Sinner won against Fritz 2-1 in the quarterfinals in 2023. This match, I believe, was 6-4, then 6-4, and then 6-4, something like that. I mean, again, one break per player per set. So I mean that means sorry, one break for the winning player of the set per set. So I think when you look at that, it tells you that these two guys in their head to heads have been really, really, really close, and just, I mean, a couple of points can separate you in this regard, because one break can really mean a 40-40 and then advantage and then win, I mean, it's nothing when it comes down to plays and players. It's sometimes a little bit of luck, a little bit of risk, and that's the way it goes, and in tennis it's always like this. I think it's one of those attractive things about the sport that even though you do have a point system where you need to win 4 points to win one game, win 6 games to win one set, and always by a difference of two. So sometimes you can go to 7-5, for example, and sometimes you can go to needing 5, 10, 15 points in one game if you go to a deuce and battle around. I mean, there's so many aspects to how you can finish off one game, one set, one match, and that's the beauty of it. And I think the end result to this 1-1 head-to-head matchup between Sinner and Fritz will give us a final to remember this Sunday, and I do believe it's going to be something very interesting to see, because these guys have been matching up quite some time in the rankings. Obviously, they've only played twice against each other in the same tournament, both times. Hardcore tournament as well, so that means it can sometimes relate to this US Open final. Now, the thing is, when you take a closer look to the actual form of these players, you'll start to see some differences. And Sinner came from a win in the Cincinnati ATP against Francis Tiafoe, and Francis was the guy that Fritz just won against in his last match, 3-2 in sets. So it's interesting to see that I mean, the actual matchup can relate as well to some player that they both just beat, and that's interesting as well. When you take a look at the form in the tournament, Sinner has only dropped 2 sets. He dropped his opening set of the tournament. Sometimes you can call that a jitter, And he dropped 1 set against Medvedev. And Medvedev, as we all know, is a really good player and can actually give quite a fight to anyone who plays against. And now Fritz, on his regard, has given up 4 sets on his way to the final. Obviously, 2 of those came in the semis against Tiafoe, and 2 of them before in different matches. Now, that may not tell you a lot, but what does tell you a lot is their playing time. When you allot their match times, I'm going to give you the numbers here for Sinner first. 2 hours and 26 minutes, 1 hour and 41 minutes, 1 hour and 56 minutes, 2 hours and 46 minutes, 2 hours and 41 minutes, 3 hours and 4 minutes. Those are his total times for the tournament. In total, Sinner has played 14 hours and 34 minutes. That's his court time. Fritz, for example, 1 hour and 53 minutes, 2 hours and 12 minutes, 2 hours and 2 minutes, 2 hours and 45 minutes, 3 hours and 29 minutes, 3 hours and 21 minutes, allotting to a total time of 15 hours and 42 minutes. That's 1 hour and 8 minutes more than Sinner. When it comes to a final, that makes a difference. And when you take a look at the last 2 matches of each player, Sinner has allotted 5 hours and 45 minutes. Fritz has allotted 6 hours and 50 minutes. That's almost a full, well, no, sorry. That's a full hour and 5 minutes more. And that makes a difference in the total allotted time. That's actually, we just talked about an hour and 8 minutes in the total tournament. An hour and five have come in the last two matches. And that, in terms of fatigue, in terms of mindful, uh, that makes a difference in the end. And let's see how that plays out with Fritz and Sinner. Obviously, for Fritz, a win against Francis Tiafoe on his last match, uh, a 3-2 match where he probably felt outplayed during some important segments of the match, and then to come out on top, that's a huge moral boost for him. And to go into a final against Sinner where he knows he can beat him because he has beaten him once, I think that can also turn into an interesting development. He's at home as well, so it's a home court advantage for him, and I think that also can push the crowd to be a little bit biased, and I quite believe that it's been a really long time since we've had a U.S. Finalist for the U.S. Open, so that's something interesting also to take a look at. And so, with all that being said, I think this final is going to be much closer than what we are looking at the odds. I believe Fritz has an interesting chance to win. It would be an upset, definitely, if he won. But I think even with the full extra hour of court time, even with him having lost 4 sets during the tournament against 2 from Sinner, I think Taylor Fritz is going to be a handful for Jannik Sinner in this final, and I really do believe he can come out with the win. Of course, it's going to depend on how Sinner plays, and I know that the crowd at Flushing Meadows is not going to be hostile against him, but when you take a look at the fact that they're going to have an American playing the final, I think most of them will want the American to win. So there's going to be quite a loud ruckus when Taylor Fritz wins some points, wins some games. If he wins a set, the crowd might just start turning around on Sinner. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that develops, how that plays out. But you can be sure that Taylor Fritz will take at least 1 set from Jannik Sinner. That's for sure. He's going to give it his best. He's going to go for broke, and it's going to be a really fun matchup to be a part of and to view. I know that tomorrow or this Sunday, I guess the NFL kicks off in a strong fashion as well. So most of the eyes might be a little bit preoccupied with the NFL games. So if you have a chance and you like tennis and you want to see a good matchup, this final is definitely one to look after. Have a good time.